From the hulls of ships, to the sides of trucks, to the walls of bathroom stalls across the world, one iconic phrase has appeared in seemingly every place around the globe. Kilroy was here. Who was this Kilroy? How did the trend start, and why is it so popular? Scholars and historians have spent decades tracing its roots and formulating theories, and yet real answers have remained as elusive as Kilroy himself. Today, we're going to take a look at how Kilroy was here may have been the very first meme. But before we get started, be sure to subscribe to the Weird History channel and let us know in the comments below what other famous images you would like to hear about. Okay, strap in, because we're going back to World War II. Throughout America's involvement in World War II, a peculiar phenomenon seemed to follow troops wherever they went. Recurring, nearly identical doodles of a strange bald man with a large bulbous nose peering over a wall or fence with the words, "Kilroy was here," written underneath. The image began popping up in countries around the world, on walls, on the sides of buses, and even on property belonging to Axis powers. The doodle clearly appeared in too many places and in too many different forms to be the work of a single person. Nonetheless, the vague connotation of what Kilroy was here meant took root in the minds of soldiers who found themselves far from home and risking their lives. And as the conflict continued, those soldiers spread Kilroy throughout the world. As the war progressed, the Kilroy was here graffiti gained a cult-like status, and it became increasingly difficult to find places Kilroy hadn't been. Some believe this ubiquity led to an informal competition among soldiers to seek out strange and increasingly remote locations that hadn't been tagged with Kilroy graffiti. Some historians believe that Kilroy even became an in-joke among GIs. They imagined Kilroy as a super soldier who was always ahead of everyone, no matter how distant or dangerous the destination may have been. They would mark the spot with a famous doodle and pretend it had already been there, left by the mythical Kilroy himself. So, no matter where the military went, Kilroy had already been there. While the true origins of the Kilroy trend are unknown, many believe it all began with a man named James J. Kilroy. This Kilroy worked at the Bethlehem Steel Company shipyard in Quincy, Massachusetts, inspecting warships that were under construction. To show that a certain section of the ship had been checked, he'd write in yellow crayon, "Kilroy was here." According to Kilroy himself, he was getting sick of being accused of not doing his job. So one day, as he came through the manhole of a tank he had just surveyed, he angrily marked the tank top with a yellow crayon. Kilroy was here. According to a report in the Spokane Daily Chronicle in December 1946, Kilroy believed that the 14,000 shipyard workers who entered the armed services were responsible for its subsequent worldwide use. Since Kilroy had been inspecting sections of unfinished warships, his signature mark would most likely have been seen by the men working in the yards. They then became familiar with the term without knowing who Kilroy was or what it meant that he had been there. When they went overseas, the term they'd all seen and grown familiar with went with them. As author and scholar Charles Panatti once wrote of the Kilroy was here phenomenon, the outrageousness of the graffito was not so much what it said, but where it turned up. And it turned up everywhere. According to a 1946 article in Collier's magazine, Kilroy was here was lettered on the very tip of the torch of the Statue of Liberty, the bullet-scarred base of the Marco Polo Bridge in China, and the eternal flame of the unknown soldier under the Arc de Triomphe in Paris. The article even reports that a construction worker doing repairs to the topmost structure of the George Washington Bridge in New York City found the words inscribed in the least accessible section of the tower. While the Kilroy was here fad became commonplace for the U.S. Armed Forces, it was pretty baffling for many among the opposing armies. One man who definitely didn't see the humor was the always good-humored Adolf Hitler. According to legend, the existence of the Kilroy was here image was brought to his attention by a number of his commanders, who kept finding the words scrawled on U.S. ordinances that the Third Reich managed to recover. Commanders told Hitler that the phrase had also been discovered in many remote locations, often before the American military had even arrived. In a development more fitting to a B-comedy movie, Hitler concluded that Kilroy was some sort of Captain America-like super soldier making his way across Europe. Some reports even claim that Hitler used some of his best men to try and find Kilroy. One place the Kilroy tag appeared with great frequency was the walls of bathroom stalls. So, unsurprising to anyone familiar with the Kilroy lore, the doodle eventually wound up in some of the most secure, exclusive bathroom stalls in the world. According to a possibly apocryphal story, the tag even made an appearance at the Potsdam Conference, a post-World War II meeting between U.S. President Harry Truman, UK Prime Minister Clement Attlee, and Soviet leader Joseph Stalin. A 1946 Collier's magazine article claims that, on the second day of the conference, Generalissimo Stalin came popping out of the lavatory, spouting in Russian to one of his aides. The article went on to report that an American interpreter standing nearby swore to a tank correspondent that what Stalin was trying to find out was, who is this Kilroy? As we know it today, the Kilroy was here image includes both the phrase itself and the balding, bulb-nosed man peering over a wall. However, it seems the image is likely a combination of two elements that were eventually brought together. For long before the man in the cartoon became widely known as Kilroy, he went by a completely different name. You see, the doodle itself began in Britain, where the character was known as Mr. Chad, or sometimes just Chad, and was attributed to cartoonist George Chatterton. Mr. Chad was drawn on walls in public places or appeared in newspapers, often with a saying written below his face. The earliest captions usually called out shortages caused by wartime rationing, such as, "What, no bread? What, no tea?" or "What, no petrol?" Given how frequently and closely American soldiers interacted with British soldiers and civilians, it makes sense that the GIs picked up the easily doodled image, but nixed the cartoon's original sentiment, replacing it with the already popular "Kilroy was here." The blend of the two memorable and easily replicable elements then helped spread it across the globe. Before Kilroy, there was Mr. Chad, and before Mr. Chad, there was Foo, a popular form of graffiti during World War I among Australian soldiers. It showed the same man looking over a brick wall, but with the similar phrase, "Foo was here." Many believe that the Foo drawing directly influenced both Mr. Chad and Kilroy. However, there were some notable differences. Foo didn't always sport the bulbous nose. Second, he was often drawn with a smile, as opposed to the more mysterious appearance of Mr. Chad and Kilroy, whose faces were almost half hidden. Also, Foo's hands weren't always drawn holding onto the top of the wall. In general, the Foo character appeared to be popping up to show his head rather than cautiously peeking. By the time World War II began, Foo was still popular among the Royal Australian Air Force, but had changed from a bald man to an impish, gremlin-like creature responsible for bad luck. The associated phrase also changed slightly to "Foo's been here." According to legend, in 1941, at a secret military school in Lincolnshire, England, a lecturer took chalk to a blackboard to draw a diagram showing the effect of a capacitor in a circuit. This technical drawing had an uncanny resemblance to the Mr. Chad character, and some believe that it was actually the inspiration for the British cartoon. The legend further states that someone later added, "What, no electrons?" which would inspire the recurring caption below the Mr. Chad drawings. One expert argues that given the British sense of humor, it's more likely that the lecturer arranged his presentation to result in the already well-known Mr. Chad. That being said, a Life magazine investigation into the Mr. Chad phenomenon did conclude that the most probable explanation for the doodle's origin was likely a bored radio or electrical trainee in the RAF. And it is pretty convincing. The curving line through a straight line, or Chad's wall top, is a standard symbol for AC current and voltage. The plus sign, which forms his eyes, is a positive polarity symbol, although sometimes the drawing features a minus sign, the negative polarity symbol, for the other eye, creating a wink. Zigzag interruptions in the straight line, or wall top, easily interpreted as fingers appearing over the edge, are actually symbols of electrical resistance. Ultimately, the whole drawing may just be a simplification of the diagram of a meter bridge. The term meme was coined by the scientist Richard Dawkins in his book The Selfish Gene, and was originally understood to refer to a phrase, concept, or idea that is spread through a group of people through imitation and recreation. Essentially, a meme is thought handed off from person to person, like when someone retells a joke they recently heard. Thanks to social media, though, the word meme now typically refers to an image with overlaid text that is spread through people posting. That means that Kilroy was here was one of the very first modern memes. It has all the components: an image, an associated text phrase, and it was spread by people posting it everywhere, albeit in real physical places instead of the internet. That's right, when it comes to memes, again, Kilroy was there first. So what do you think? What's your favorite meme? Let us know in the comments below, and while you're at it, check out some of these other videos from our weird history.